I did my certification about 11 years back. I was already in a regional role, but I have no doubt in saying that this certification actually made me transform not just my career, but my HR perspective and paradigm on HR professionalism. I personally feel that the largest, most significant aspect of the SHRM competency-based certification is that it is bridging the gap between knowledge and practice. Over the last few years, I have tried to master most of the competencies, especially leadership and navigation and business acumen, which are two very important ones. And I personally feel that it's been a game changer for me. And I feel that over the last few years, I would say I've gotten more confidence when I led global projects, when perhaps I managed teams which were cross-functional and cross-border, as well as influencing some very senior level strategic HR decision making. I personally feel that the BASK, we call the book of SHRM BASK. Initially it was called BOK, Body of Competence and Knowledge. Today it's called Body of Applied Sciences and Knowledge. The BASK is not just a textbook. It's not theory only. It is the combined effort and experiences of 32,000 senior HR professionals across the globe. So if we start comparing it to CIPD is a completely different concept. It is good for UK and perhaps some of European countries. But SHRM is definitely a global certification, and like Zahid Saab mentioned, or like Dr. Saad mentioned, that its capacity is humongous. I would completely second Zahid Saab's statement that in UAE, perhaps it's become a prerequisite. It's mandatory that you have to be SHRM certified. In Pakistan, it's not there. It's preferable. I see a lot of companies putting that in, but it is there. So for all those aspiring individuals who are wanting to do their HR certifications, please do remember that this is not just a credential which is being added to your profile or your CV. That is definitely there. Having said that, it's an opportunity to actually unlock your potential, build your credibility, and inspire change in your life. So if you really want to, I would strongly recommend that take the step. It is definitely worth it. Right, Ji, the topic for today, my topic is leader and leadership development. Leadership overall is a cluster within the SHRM BASK model. And within that cluster, you have leadership and navigation, ethical practice, as well as a newly added diversity, equity, and inclusion part. Having said that, we are talking here about the future of HR. And whenever we talk about the future of HR, it is all about leadership and leadership development, because that lies at the heart of any organizational success. You will all agree that culture actually seeps from the top. HR right now, since the last 10, 20 years, has been at crossroads, intersections. When it transitioned from a personnel department to strategic HR, it became the cornerstone of a buffer in between strategy and people or human capital. So HR is expected and is tasked to navigate through the challenges of talent management, but at the same time, it is supposed to create an environment where every individual and every team can thrive. But unfortunately, there is no process or no policy which can substitute the tone from the top. Culture does not get defined in boardrooms. Culture is not defined in your handbooks or policy. Culture is modeled by your leadership, their interactions, their decision making, and especially their behaviors. If the leader wants, the organization can have inclusivity, collaboration, alignment, and at the same time, a lot of equity and development there. And automatically that cascades down to the rest of the organization. So this is what leadership and leadership development is about. I will now focus on the latter part. We all know there have been a lot of leaders. And by the way, you don't need to be at the top to be a leader. All of you are leaders. It's more of a mindset. And you can be an autocratic leader, you can be a democratic leader, you can be a coercive leader, you can be an introvert leader, you can be an extrovert leader. You can be having the great man trait there. Having said that, there's another term which has recently jumped above all leaderships over the last 5 to 10 years, and that's called the servant leadership. I will get into that. But before I go there, let me ask you a question. And I need you to seriously think about it before answering. Any one of you, raise your hands. Do you know the name of your great-grandfather? And there are 4 of them. Remember, you had 4 great-grandfathers. और मैं ये नहीं पूछ रहा वो कैसे थे, क्या करते थे, मैं सिर्फ उनका नाम पूछ रहा हूँ आपसे. आप में से कोई भी ऐसा है जो हाथ खड़ा करके बता सकता है कि उनका नाम क्या था? जी, 2. Were they famous gentlemen? No. Was your grandfather a famous gentleman? Okay, thank you. What I'm trying to establish here is, और ये देखें, हम सब की एज ग्रुप बाय एंड लार्ज बराबर ही होगा, लेकिन हम बात कर रहे हैं लेट 1800s या अर्ली 1900s की, जब ये साहिबान शायद अपनी ज़िंदगी जी रहे थे. कितना डिफरेंस है? 100 साल. तो एक आदमी की, एक इंडिविजुअल की लेगेसी 100 साल पे मुहित है मैक्स. और इस पूरे क्राउड में जो 60 लोग बैठे हुए हैं, 60-70 के करीब, सिर्फ 3 लोग ने हाथ रेस किया. और मैं जो 3 लोगों ने हाथ रेस किया वो भी उन्होंने शायद एक ग्रेट ग्रैंडफादर का नाम, आपके 4 हैं, हर एक के 4 ग्रेट ग्रैंडफादर्स हैं. तो इट जस्ट शोज कि आपका जो इन्फ्लुएंस है, परहैप्स जो आपकी लेगेसी है, वो 100 साल से आगे नहीं जाएगी. नाउ लेट मी कम टू द टॉपिक ऑफ लीडरशिप डेवलपमेंट. एंड आई वुड लाइक टू कोट अ लॉट ऑफ ऑथर्स एंड बुक्स हियर. आप सब ने नाम सुना हुआ होगा जिम कॉलिंस का. जिम कॉलिंस की 2 बहुत अच्छी किताबें तो उन्होंने बहुत सारी लिखी हैं, लेकिन मुझे उनकी 2 तसानीफ जो हैं वो बहुत मुझे पसंद हैं. एक गुड टू ग्रेट, एक बिल्ड टू लास्ट. गुड टू ग्रेट में ही टॉक्स अबाउट दोज ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस दैट डिड एक्सपोनेंशियली वेल. देयर प्रॉफिट्स, देयर अचीवमेंट्स skyrocketed. It was not a steady incline, it was like a skyrocket. So they took the names of the CEOs, because they were sitting at the helm, and they asked that let's try and compare and look at the commonalities which might be there between those CEOs. And lo and behold, they didn't come up with a single commonality, barring 2. And it was a paradoxical blend of professional will and personal humility. शेर में उल्टा पढ़ रहा हूँ जानबूझ के. सुराही सर नगू होके पैमाना भरा करती है, जो आला ज़र्फ होते हैं झुक के मिलते हैं. Personal humility is a virtue which in the international arena is considered paramount. Unfortunately, हमारे मुल्क में ज़रा सा सरिया जल्दी आ जाता है गर्दन में. जिम कॉलिंस की दूसरी किताब जो है वो है बिल्ड टू लास्ट, जिसके बारे में मैं बात कर रहा था. उसका एक चैप्टर है time tellers versus clock builders. Time tellers are those individuals, those charismatic, dynamic leaders who, when they enter the organization, they create success. Success goes around them in aura. It's the gravitas of the personality. And while they are there, the organization flourishes. But once they leave, the organization goes back to square one. Clock builders, on the contrary, are people who not only flourish in the present, but they ensure that they develop people and they groom individuals and build in systems which go much beyond than their actual lifespan. एक और खातून हैं जिन्होंने बहुत मशहूर किताब लिखी, वो भी मल्टी मिलियन बेस्ट सेलर बनी. उस किताब का नाम है मल्टीप्लायर्स. लिज वाइजमैन इनका नाम है. लिज वाइजमैन कहती हैं कि the multipliers are those individuals, those leaders that develop more leaders. They build the intellectual capacity and the capability around themselves. Not just about, the story is not about them. And then she compares it to another concept of diminishers. These are those charismatic individuals who not intentionally, unintentionally stifle the potential of others around them. And we have many of them. Even in your organizations, you might be familiar that they are those individuals where it's all about them, nobody else. And the third gentleman that I want to talk about is Mr. Stephen Covey. उनकी सबसे मशहूर किताब The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. सेकेंड हैबिट क्या है? एनीवन? आपको याद है? आप लोगों ने किया है? Begin with the end in mind. He had a very provoking analogy to it. स्टीफन कहते थे कि think about your tombstone, and if there's an epitaph that needs to be written, will it be exactly like your CV? कि आपके क्या टाइटल्स थे, आपकी क्या अचीवमेंट्स थी, आपने कहाँ प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी की, कहाँ आपने सक्सेसेस की, या आपका एपिटैफ ये होगा कि आपने कितनियों की ज़िंदगियों में फ़ायदा पहुँचाया, कितनों को आपने इन्फ्लुएंस किया, कितने लोगों को आपने मेंटोर किया, कितने सिस्टम्स आपने बनाए, कौन सी लेगेसी आपने छोड़ी. तो ये बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है. एंड यहीं से वो कॉन्सेप्ट आता है सर्वेंट लीडरशिप का, कि द सर्वेंट लीडर एक्चुअली लीड्स फ्रॉम द बैक, नॉट फ्रॉम द फ्रंट. एंड वी हैव अ वेरी ह्यूज एग्जाम्पल इन द पॉलिटिकल अरीना. आई वोंट से यस्टरयर्स बिकॉज ये कुछ ही सालों की बात है जब उनकी डेथ हुई. नेल्सन मैंडेला वॉज सच अ लीडर. He used to lead from the back. Even in the animal kingdom, if you look at it, there is a certain breed which believes in that. Do you know which one? Wolves. Thank you. Wolf, जो भेड़िया है, the leader always, when the pack is moving, it's at the back. The pack is at the forefront are the most feeble and old wolves. Because they are setting the pace, क्योंकि वरना वो पीछे रह जाएंगे. उसके बाद सबसे ferocious wolves होते हैं उनके बिल्कुल पीछे for protection. Then the entire clan, and then at the end is the leader who's looking everywhere. He has the whole horizon there, and ताकि सारा पैक इकट्ठे रहे और खुदा न खास्ता कोई प्रॉब्लम आ रही है तो he should see it from the back. So it's all about the leadership and how you develop the next generation. ये लाइफ के बारे में चीज़ें हैं, लेकिन ऑटोमेटिकली ये ट्रांसलेट होती है ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में भी. और श्रम भी ये बहुत सारा इस पर स्ट्रेस करता है. हर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का, इवन एज ऑफ टुडे, चाहे वो मल्टीनेशनल हो चाहे वो लोकल हो, उनके मसाइल यही हैं. सबसे बड़ा मसला है सक्सेशन प्लानिंग. व्हाट इज़ द सक्सेशन गैप? It is where is your next generation of leaders coming from? That's the biggest quandary, the biggest enigma which is there. And unless and until you plan accordingly, and it's not just technical skills that we are talking about, it's actually grooming of proper leadership which takes over the helm. So it's up to you to decide whether you want to be a multiplier or a diminisher, or actually whether you want to be a navigator, like Zahid Mubarak Sahib, navigating through the uncertainties and making a path, or you just want to be a passenger as you go along your professional and personal life. Thank you.